This has got to be one of the biggest issues of World of Tanks console right now, and it is annoying that we even have to make this video, but unfortunately it is the case. And of course we're talking about the premium problem and the fact that we've basically not got any actual user kind of performance-based stuff within the game in terms of updates for numerous years, where we've got new content that people can engage with that you don't have to pay money for, and it's starting to become very apparent, at least from the user's perspective and my own opinion of how I feel the game is going right now, that it is just constant monetization of the game that we all play. The only updates that we've really received, and albeit I'm not entirely against it, are things like the customization of the garage, which although it is a good thing to have in the game and adds a little bit of something extra for people who are interested in customization and stuff like that, it does really annoy me, because at the end of the day this is probably more of a monetization thing rather than something that is, you know, useful for a lot of the players and something new and a new experience that we can all access as part of World of Tanks console. And unfortunately that's how it's been going for probably like the last 4 years. Since update 6.0 we really haven't received very many improvements in terms of the user experience, and generally as a player who is wanting to try new things and get involved with new content that comes into the game, it's been very limited. I mean, I don't even know when the last time that we got an additional kind of interface within the game that would actually give you something extra. We have not had very many challenges when it comes to the game to keep you interested in playing long term, and of course with the release of just constant premium tanks every single week almost, yeah, it gets a little bit frustrating from my point of view, and I'm sure some of you will be of a similar mind, and if you aren't, I'd be interested to see where your gripes with the game actually are right now, because there's definitely some things that have been going on for probably a little bit too long and is becoming very apparent with regards to the monetization aspect of World of Tanks console. And in fact, I actually for some time have been thinking that it would just be better to make World of Tanks console into a paid game with a better relaunch, where they could actually sell the game for a X amount of pounds. You know, you could be looking at a relatively cheap price in comparison to a lot of AAA games, etc., where maybe you charge £15. And I believe that this actually stops one of the biggest things which has been annoying, which is that I believe off the top of my head, and from kind of people who are more interested or at least more involved with some of the game's development side within where kind of Microsoft, is that a free game can only be so big before you have to actually sell the game as a actual kind of item. Otherwise, yeah, you can't actually make your game bigger, which puts limitations on how you can actually develop your game, and whether or not that is true is dependent on, you know, whether I would actually say to make it a paid game. I mean, even if it was super cheap, if they were to do this, it would be much better, and I feel like paying £5 for a game is not particularly that bad in today's kind of at least game economy, where you see games going up for £90 with expansions that are £40 each or more to be able to actually get additional features to a game that you've already paid £90 for. Now, World of Tanks typically are one of the games that will just essentially keep rolling out premium tanks over and over again, to the point where essentially each one becomes less valuable. There are so many of them in the game that often in modes like Cold War, for example, you see a lot more premium tanks within the matchmaker, and considerably more premium tanks than actual people playing the tech tree vehicles, which is both a combination of giving out free vehicles as part of season passes and also releasing so many premium tanks that you end up with this big mess of matchmaker. And yeah, it just feels a little bit annoying that we haven't seen some additional content, additional features that the game is lacking right now to be competitive with, you know, some of the other games out there, whether they're direct kind of I guess, competition, probably not. But at the same time, if you want to make a game that is going to be able to drive in new traffic and keep up with the current market and the current expectations of players that are going to be playing on consoles, yeah, it certainly doesn't feel like Wargaming are doing a great job of actually keeping up with kind of, I guess, industry standards, if that makes sense, with regards to additional content as part of your game that isn't just the bog standard, you know, you go into a game and that's it, you know. I mean, just take a look at things like Call of Duty, which are literally a game very, very similar, except you're not playing in a tank, whereby you just go in and you deal, you know, you try and get as many kills, or you try and do as best as you possibly can, win as many games as you possibly can, and there are still a ton of features outside of the actual game that, you know, you can work towards, you can go towards, that just are not present within World of Tanks console. And kind of why I wanted to discuss all of this and the issues that we're currently facing within the game, because at the moment I feel like there isn't a big enough voice for the actual community, and I'm sure that many of you are actually in the same sort of boat, where we just feel a little bit lackluster in terms of the actual content that's coming out. I mean, even some of the worst monetization games do come out with like kind of actual updates to try and promote the game's health, for at least for the long term, but there's been very minor kind of additions when it comes to the game, and often the actual additions that we've got have been updates from the past, from where they remove features, like during Update 6.0. For those of you who don't know what Update 6.0 is, if you were playing after in the last couple of years, then yeah, Update 6.0 is a big update where they essentially regenerated the game to update all of the back end, I believe, of the game itself. But then in doing so, the resources that they used meant that a lot of the features within the game had to be removed, or, you know, some of the maps weren't actually available to be used with the updated graphics and stuff like that. And that ended up where we have this situation right now, where we're still multiple years down the line and we don't even have the maps that we originally had in the game before the update 6.0 even happened. So yeah, it's let alone any kind of brand new maps that are kind of novel and unique, we haven't actually seen before. So it's been a long time since we've actually seen a brand new map that we've never seen in the game. And in fact, I'd rather see that than some of the returning maps, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's just my opinion with regards to some of the content that has been coming out. I'm not saying it's all bad, certainly the game is still good. The problem is that it can only be good for so long before you start to like think, well, what am I actually playing this game for? What do I have in the long term? And once you get past the initial stage of I've got the tanks that I need, what do you do then? And is there anything to kind of help you on your journey with regards to content surrounding both the menus and being able to unlock different things that aren't just the tanks, because that is one of the key aspects of the game. Unlock the tank that you want, get it, buy it with silver. Awesome, I've got now my tech tree tank. But what happens when you get that tech tree tank and the only thing you can really do is to grind for marks of excellence, or just play because you have an innate drive to try and have the best game possible in said vehicle? Well, that is where I feel like we are missing the end game content within the game. There isn't really many end game content, and although there are marks of excellence, like I've mentioned, this is often one of those things that is purely capped by the experience level of the player. And so just saying that that is a end game content means that only a very minute amount of people are actually going to be able to get certain said marks of excellence, because maybe they don't play all of the time, but they have all of the tier 10s in the game. And so there's a bit of a divide between that being endgame content for the majority of players and it being endgame content for some of the elite players who have spent tens of days within the game, and probably way more than that, thousands of hours, to be able to get good and be able to perform consistently. Whereas there should also be a reward or something to achieve for the majority of players, because let's be real, it is the majority of players who probably play and pay towards the game, and unfortunately there's nothing really keeping people playing once they've actually got their original intended goal, which is tier 10s. And so that is kind of where I found myself, both as a player that is experienced and can go for marks of excellence, it just doesn't feel enough to actually make me want to jump on every single day and play. And certainly some of the challenges and operations that we currently have within the game are very, very limited. They're very mundane tasks that require you to do X amount of damage for 100 games, or do X amount of assistance damage for 50 games. And so it really is just a case of playing the game, which isn't really a challenge. It's just a case of how long can you grin and bear to play the game within a said time period and hope that you're able to actually perform decently throughout every single match. It is not really an incentive, and often the rewards aren't really that exclusive or rare that you would actually want to complete some of these objectives, because at the end of the day it's just a play wall rather than a pay wall or a experience or a kind of really trying hard to complete said operations, which is where having more complex challenges, having things that are a bit more nuanced, and having permanent challenges which aren't going to affect the matchmaker, which is what's been going on, something that I feel like is really missing within the game. And I've been a big advocate for introducing long-term challenges that are permanent, whether they be permanent or actually, you know, a year-long objective that isn't going to a third-party website and completing seasons, which is what they've released as part of some of the big updates within the game. And unfortunately that is where I feel like it's just not enough, because completing a season, that's not an incentive. That's a case of you've just got to grind and play the game as you normally would enough to complete a season. It's not like you're grinding towards anything and the end goal is, you know, so far away that you can't really feel like you're progressing all too much. And it's certainly not going to keep a player staying and playing the game over a long period of time if that's the sort of objectives that Wargaming are going for. So there's kind of this problem that I've been finding, is that Wargaming trying to cash in on a lot of the kind of easy low-hanging fruit, and there doesn't seem to be a want or maybe a need to actually try and regenerate the game and grow the game itself with the current updates and the current regime of what's going on in the game. Now, I want to say I have no idea what Wargaming are planning in the future for World of Tanks console. Maybe they're going to come out in a month's time and say, we've been working on a giant system that is going to regenerate the game and grow the game. But based off of current feedback and current kind of views of what we've seen on the live streams and the developer community questions and answers and all of that sort of stuff, it doesn't seem like we're going to really get that much. And of course we'll see some new tech tree lines come into the game, but they're so few and far between that often it's not going to keep people playing throughout the entire year, and often they'll just come on, play the tech tree line when it gets released first, and then maybe stay on for a little bit after they've completed the grind, and then probably leave and play something else again. So it's where you've got to have a constant feedback of, you've positively done this, you've completed this, you've got this challenge, you've got this kind of reward, you can get the next reward, here you go, here's this small reward, but don't worry, there's a bigger reward coming and you'll get that eventually. And look, you can show it off to all of the people in the game by playing and of course completing said challenges, and people will be like, oh okay, that's that cool looking skin, or maybe we get a 3D style or something for a tank. And people go, yeah, actually, I want to do that as well. So then they start playing more, trying to complete it. And then we end up in a situation where people are playing more, interacting and trying to play together and get as better as they, or best as possible that they can be to complete said objectives and generally improve the health of the game. At least that's what I've seen with a lot of games that are successful and that do have long-term kind of progress over a number of years. You see it with most MMOs. The more advanced and kind of more challenges and cosmetics and all sorts that you can get over time, it does really add to the feeling that you can do anything and play however you want, but be working towards something at all times. Whereas, you know, World of Tanks doesn't really have that right now, and certainly adding more premium tanks isn't going to keep me playing, because yeah, I mean, some of the games that are coming out right now are very, very good, and just trying to warrant spending, you know, much more time, you know, 2 or 3 times the time playing World of Tanks to be able to achieve something that is okay, versus, you know, spending time having a load of fun on something else that is basically the same price as well, because a lot of the premium tanks are, you know, £30, or you could buy an entire game along with loads of expansions on sale that has been out for a little bit for the same price. And so, yeah, do I want a brand new game that I can have complete new enjoyment, or do I want a premium tank that is probably going to get superseded the following week for the same price? And yeah, I mean, in terms of what I would rather spend my money on, it's definitely a new game that is interesting to me personally. So I'd be interested to see what you guys' thoughts are, and what you struggle with regards to long-term content. What actually keeps you playing the game? Is it marks of excellence, or do you not really play the game as much as you would like to? Or what would actually keep you playing the game? Because at the end of the day, these are all stuff that Wargaming will look at when it comes to trying to develop the game, if they care about the long-term health of World of Tanks console, or World of Tanks Modern Armour as it's now called. Yeah, just let me know in the comment section down below. I'm really interested to see whether or not you would change anything in specific, but it's been really apparent recently that it's just been constant premium vehicles and a very lack of actual content that is not just a paywall for people to buy. And yeah, you do need to add in payment methods and ways of actually generating revenue as a business, obviously, but when it comes to the extent of you're not providing value to your customers at some point, then eventually people will start realizing that there's no actual value. They're just trying to take the money and run with the product that they've currently got, and not adapting to the market or maybe the situation that they're in right now, and then it leads to a slow but very painful grind for anyone else who is left playing the game. And so hopefully that doesn't happen to the game. Hopefully Wargaming will come out and be like, yep, we've actually been working on a massive project that is completely different, completely novel, and it's actually going to regenerate the game. But, you know, given off of previous experience and what we've seen so far, I'm not entirely sure that that is going to happen anytime soon. So if you are new and you're playing World of Tanks console, yeah, I'd be interested to see your thoughts on what actually makes you want to play the game, and what would you see as a new player as some of the drawbacks of actually playing the game. Do you find it difficult, or is there something that you feel like would be a good addition as a newer player, or someone that hasn't actually played the game before, that you feel like, well, how come they haven't actually got this in the game? That'd be good to see as well. So if you've got any questions or queries or things that you want to find out about the game, feel free to also ask in the comment section down below. But yeah, hopefully my videos, my channel, and of course all of the reviews, the news and stuff like that is helpful to some of you. And if it is, and you want to support me, then like the video. And of course, if you want to support me financially, you can do that using the join link in the description to be able to become a channel member, where you get a little badge when you comment on some of my videos. So that's basically a way of supporting me, and I appreciate every single person who's watched this video, and of course a special thanks to all of the channel members as well. And I hope that you'll join me all in the next video. Goodbye.